Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're taking a journey back in time, not just to revisit a familiar chapter in history, but to peel back its layers. We're talking about Colonial America, a period we all learned about in school. But how much of what we learned is the full story? How much is myth? Let's dive into Colonial America Exposed. Myths, truths, and hidden histories. When we think of the first colonists, the image that often comes to mind is of stern, black-clad pilgrims landing at Plymouth Rock, seeking religious freedom. While the Pilgrims were indeed a key part of the story, they were far from the only, or even the first group to arrive. Let's bust myth number 1. The Pilgrims were the first successful colonists, before the Mayflower even set sail in 1620. The English had already established a permanent settlement in Jamestown, Virginia, back in 1607. These early Virginians weren't seeking religious freedom. They were hunting for gold and economic opportunity, backed by the Virginia Company of London. Jamestown's story is a gritty tale of survival, conflict with the Powhatan Confederacy. It's a desperate search for a profitable venture, which they eventually found in tobacco. So, while the Pilgrims' story is powerful, it's just one piece of a much larger, more complex puzzle of motivations that drove people across the Atlantic. Now let's talk about that famous landing spot, Plymouth Rock. It's a national symbol, right? The very foundation stone of America. Myth number 2. The Pilgrims definitely landed at Plymouth Rock. The truth is, there's no mention of Plymouth Rock in any contemporary accounts from the Pilgrims themselves. Not even in William Bradford's detailed journal of Plymouth Plantation. The story of the rock only emerged about 120 years later in 1741, when a 94-year-old man claimed his father, who was an early settler, had identified the rock. So while it's a powerful symbol, its historical accuracy as the specific landing point is pretty shaky. It's more of a legend that grew over time. Okay, let's move on to one of the biggest and most romanticized stories, the first Thanksgiving. We have this picture-perfect image of pilgrims and Native Americans sitting down together for a harmonious feast, a beautiful moment of cross-cultural friendship. Myth number 3. The first Thanksgiving was a planned, peaceful celebration between two equal groups. The reality is more complicated. The 1621 gathering was indeed a harvest feast, and the Wampanoag people, led by their leader Massasoit, were there. But it wasn't exactly a planned potluck. The Wampanoag likely showed up after hearing celebratory gunfire from the colonists, perhaps concerned or curious. Their presence with about 90 men was a strategic and political move. Massasoit had his own reasons for forming an alliance with these newcomers, largely as a defense against rival tribes. The peace was fragile and based on mutual need, not pure friendship. This single event overshadows the decades of conflict, disease, and displacement that followed for Native American communities across the continent. It's a moment frozen in time that hides a much harsher truth. Let's shift our focus to the people themselves. We often imagine colonial society as a simple world of farmers, merchants, and preachers. But this view misses a huge and vital part of the population. Here's a hidden history for you: the sheer diversity of the colonies. We're not just talking about English, but also Dutch in New York, Swedes in Delaware, Germans in Pennsylvania, and Scots-Irish all along the frontier. And crucially, we must talk about the Africans, both enslaved and free, whose forced labor and cultural contributions were fundamental to the colony's economic success, especially in the South. In cities like New York and Charleston, the African and African American populations were substantial. Their cultures, skills, and resilience are an integral, though often silenced, part of the colonial American story. It wasn't a homogeneous English world. It was a multicultural, multi-ethnic melting pot from the very beginning, albeit one defined by extreme inequality and exploitation. Another hidden aspect of colonial life is the role of women. We might picture them as quiet, domestic figures confined to the home. But colonial women were incredibly resilient and resourceful. They were farmers, shopkeepers, midwives, and artisans. In a world with high mortality rates, many women became widows and had to take over family businesses and manage estates, wielding a degree of economic power we don't often associate with the period. Women like Eliza Lucas Pinckney in South Carolina revolutionized agriculture by successfully cultivating indigo, a major cash crop. While they lacked political rights, their economic and social contributions were the bedrock of colonial society. They weren't passive bystanders. They were active agents in building their communities. I'll let S tackle a big idea. The American dream and the concept of the colonies as a land of opportunity for all. Is it really a place where anyone could pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Myth number 4. Colonial America was a land of equal opportunity. The reality was that social mobility was limited. Your starting point mattered a lot. If you arrived as an indentured servant, you were bound to labor for years, often in brutal conditions, to pay off your passage. While some did eventually gain their freedom and acquire land, many others died before their term was up or struggled to get a foothold in society. The gap between the wealthy landowning gentry, think of the large plantation owners in Virginia, and the common farmer or laborer, was enormous. Wealth and power were concentrated in the hands of a small elite, a pattern that would continue to shape American society for centuries. It was a land of opportunity for some, but a place of hardship and struggle for many more. Finally, let's talk about the relationship with the indigenous peoples. The Thanksgiving story gives us a snapshot, but it's a misleading one. The hidden history is one of continuous and systematic dispossession. It wasn't just a few isolated battles. It was a relentless push westward. European concepts of land ownership where you could buy, sell, fence off property were completely alien to most Native American cultures, who saw land as a communal resource. This fundamental clash of worldviews led to countless broken treaties and violent conflicts. Diseases brought from Europe, to which Native Americans had no immunity, caused catastrophic population declines, wiping out entire communities. This wasn't an unfortunate side effect. In some cases, it was a deliberate tactic of war. Understanding this hidden history is crucial to understanding the foundation of the United States. So, what's the takeaway here? Colonial America wasn't a simple, heroic tale. It was a messy, complex, and often brutal period. It was a time of incredible courage and innovation, but also of profound injustice and conflict. By exposing the myths, recognizing the hard truths, and uncovering the hidden histories of the diverse peoples, the resilient women, the exploited laborers, and the displaced native populations, we get a much richer, more accurate picture of how this nation began. History is never as simple as the stories we tell ourselves. It's in the complexities and contradictions that we find the deepest understanding. Thanks so much for watching. What part of this history was most surprising to you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deeper dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past. See you next time.